Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. All right, so today is the day. $97 million extension, 2-year deal will be placed on the table in front of LeBron James. And of course, he'll have the right to sign it or decline it and move forward with the season and then finish that as a free agent. So I'm thinking, as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about the 97 million. I'm like, that's a really nice check for a 37-year-old basketball player. And in my mind, it might not be the worst idea for him to sign it because of the fact of the injury histories that he's had as a Laker. He's already went down with 2 season-ending injuries. And a third, if I'm not mistaken, that kept him out for an extended period of time. Most of his tenure with the Lakers has been spent fighting back from injury or dealing with injury. And I think it's wise at this age to lock up for whatever ability of years that are available to you, even for the pinnacle of the league. When you see the value of young players, you see what's going on with Kevin Durant, you look back a couple years ago, see what happened with Isaiah Thomas. It might be wise for a guy like LeBron James to not overthink these next 2 seasons. Not to say that anything can go catastrophically wrong, but you hedge yourself against that when you lock up for multiple years. And so a $97 million extension for him, I think, would solidify a lot of things, obviously making him the highest paid athlete in the NBA, accumulating the most amount of money in total. And that's a big deal in and of itself. Obviously, we've mentioned a million times that it makes sense for him to stay in Los Angeles based on the lifestyle. His kids getting older and starting to come into their own, and things like that just makes it so that you want to stay settled. You want to put yourself in a position to have as much security as possible. And as I said, even as the pinnacle, even as the biggest star on the biggest stage, you still want to make sure that you secure yourself everywhere possible. And I think that signing this extension could be seen that way by him and his team. I also think that it may be in their best interest to remain flexible, to think about what may be best for them in regards to investing in the roster themselves, especially given where they are at this point. And I feel like LeBron James should really consider what's best for him as it pertains to what he wants to see himself doing over the next 4 years in the NBA. Because I don't, in my gut, believe he has any intention of retiring. Obviously, he wants to play with his son. So he wants to put himself in a position to be where his son is. But as I told you guys last night, while the media is telling you that they are certain that he's going to leave the Lakers to play with his son, I'm more so believing that they're trying to strategize a way to get his son to the Lakers. I don't think he's going to want to leave LA then, just like I don't think he wants to leave now. And it's one of those situations where if his son is in a certain draft range, it may be possible to try to leverage ourselves an opportunity to get his rights in some way, somehow. So the league knows he wants to play with his son, and I do believe that as the season progresses, you'll hear more and more about the Lakers and the potential of them leveraging an opportunity or trying to get themselves a first-round pick at the end of the draft that kid is going to be a part of in hopes of trying to land him. I see that coming. Now, I don't know what his draft stock is going to be, but I'm just saying they're going to try to do everything they can to make it so that Bron doesn't have to leave, including trading for him on draft night. And he's going to be expensive, too, because that whatever team drafts him understands that they have a chance to either get Bron or get a huge haul for him from the Lakers because of the status of Bron wanting to play with his son. So that right there is a situation where it's going to get very tricky. But I do believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that LeBron James is going to do everything he can, as he said, to play with his son. And I don't think he has any intention of leaving where he's comfortable to do that. Now, the key to all that, of course, is to keep this place comfortable for him. And I think that's up in the air, to be honest with you, as it pertains to the Lakers front office and the choices that they're going to make, where they want to go going forward, how they view Bron's age, and what they think is best for the franchise in the long term. A lot of mistakes obviously have been made And, I think they're really concerned about the flexibility of where they're headed over the next several years with the picks being, so very important in regards to the rest of the field, wanting us to let them go. So, I do believe that that's something that makes people in the Laker front office a little nervous, and I'm not sure if everybody's lockstep in how things are going. But given how the NBA market is right now, I don't think it's necessary for everybody to be urgent in regards to making moves away from this timeline, because it may not be possible to do it anyway. So that's where we're at. Looking at the Kyrie Irving situation, of course, as we've been talking about at length, nothing has changed. But I do wonder if there's any possibility whatsoever that a move could be made in anticipation of him signing or not signing the extension. That's what I'm curious about. Is it possible someone could jump out ahead of that and do something to try to entice him to feel even better about signing the extension? Now, like I said, the waters are treacherous and it may not be possible for a move to be made. But if people are desperate enough, they'll overpay to ease their minds in regards to something that they're stressing about. And so my curiosity is any of that going on behind the scenes with the Lakers to where they would be willing to maybe do something that would otherwise make it so that Bron feels a lot better about signing the extension today? I don't think so. If you're wondering what my gut says, I'm not thinking that that's going to happen, but it's floating around in my mind as one of those things that could catch us off guard, and you'd be like, whoa, the Lakers traded for Kyrie Irving right before LeBron signed the extension, something like that. That's something that could happen. That's a possibility, but I don't see it coming. So I figured I'd just throw it out there, let it be. But all in all, I hope the Lakers make calculated decisions. Seems like they're on the right page. As a fan, I'm just hopeful that they can get the team to a place where we can have a cohesive basketball club to start the season, and then retool into something that really can win from there. Because right now we just have pieces that don't fit. THT, Westbrook, those are two of the most important contracts and expensive contracts that we have, and those two pieces literally cannot play with one another. They just don't function properly on the floor together, as we've seen in many instances. So maybe the presence of a few other players, of course a big, for which we've brought plenty of, can help us with maybe making them kind of make sense on the floor together if necessary. But ultimately, they make so many of the same decisions and have so many of the same weaknesses that you can't play them. But both of them are too prominent in their roles to not have them on the floor at the same time, at least for a little while. So when you have a dynamic like that, you understand that you can't win unless you shrink your bench into some very, very serious dimensions. So the Lakers must make moves. We must make trades. We must get better. We may be able to get away with starting the season 20 games playing with this roster, but eventually we're going to need to complete our roster in order to actually be a good team. And so when your team isn't complete, you're relying upon guys to do more, and that is definitely not what we need to be doing with the injury history that we have with the players and the age of LeBron James. No, we need our fit to make sense, and we need guys to be able to give them as much rest and recuperation time as we can possibly create for them. So that's the key. I wonder if LeBron James is considering, investing in the roster because of that as well, because it's understood that he's going to probably miss games. As we said, does it make sense for him to consider what it means to have a little more money on the cap from his angle? But here's what I say to that also in response. The Lakers, the thing about the cap space that they create for LeBron James is if you don't have a specific piece in place, a plan for that cap space, what ends up happening is he gives the money back, and it's likely going to a player that you're overpaying, because whoever is on the other side of the fence is going to be like, okay, Lakers, LeBron James gave back that money. We believe that we're worth all of it. That's exactly how they're going to get leveraged. That's exactly how they're going to be approached by whoever they use that money on. So if you don't have a PJ Tucker situation as to where James Harden is giving back that money so that you can get that specific piece at that specific price, If you don't have something like that in place and LeBron James gives back money, 9 out of 10 times you're going to give that money to someone that shouldn't have it. They're going to ask for it. That's how that's going to go with the agents behind the scenes. In my mind, if it goes the way I think it goes, my client is exactly why LeBron James gave that money back. And we believe that we can be the piece that ultimately makes that happen. And we are not signing until we get that representation, because that's the respect we believe our client deserves. That's exactly how you're going to get approached. And so, because I believe that dynamic as well as several others are in place, I don't think a guy like LeBron James is going to be willing to give back money. I don't think so. And if it's a lot, it will be because it's a player that ultimately he believes he can win with. Somebody that he knows will help directly with a championship banner. So I don't think anything like that's on the table at all. I do understand that Kyrie Irving's coming in, but he's coming in at a set price for this year's opt-in situation, $37 million or just shy of that. So there's no reason to give back money to acquire Kyrie, because that situation is as it is. But it, not necessarily. He can give back money and help with us acquiring the contract, but it doesn't translate the same way in my mind. It's just extra cap space to help Genie and Rob otherwise. And so, like I said, if there's no plan for that, it's just being done out of the goodness of his heart, and it might not be utilized properly. So now he's going to take all his money, if you ask me. If he does sign the extension, it'll be for 57 or 97, for 2 years. So yeah, that's what I think. I don't anticipate him giving back any money. But if for some reason he does give back some money, it's one of those situations where it'll be to the betterment of the team, probably more so next season, not this year. Maybe you see it in a deadline move. Like, that's when you'll see the ability to use that space, is in mid-season moves, early season moves. If they decide to use that space, it would be in a way to acquire a contract of some sort that may not necessarily be desirable or something. That's how you do that. I don't know, like a Tobias Harris, maybe you trade for that kind of thing. So you get back money for that? I don't think the Lakers are interested in acquiring a contract of that nature. So I don't know. I'm just brainstorming. But all in all, in most situations, you got to have a plan for the money that a player gets back. It got to be a real specific and plan for that cash. If not, then the guy's just throwing it back into the cap to see it be obliterated by somebody else. That's all it is. So it's pointless. Yeah, depth is key, though. We definitely want depth, but you can find depth, as we've learned, in other areas. You don't have to get back money to have good players. You just got to scout well and develop well, and we are doing that. And I'm super excited about what we're putting together. As you guys know, I've been screaming these kids' names: Swider, Pippen, Huff. These guys are good. I want to see them on the floor. I know Huff got a two-way, I think it's an exhibit something. I don't know the name of that deal, but it's not quite two-way. It's not the same deal as Austin had, but he's going to get some minutes in the big leagues, I believe, this year. And when he does, we're going to see very quickly that he needs to be a part of the roster. Now, we do have a lot of bigs at this point, as I said already, but I think he might develop to be the one that we want to hold on to the most. And so we'll see how that goes. His three-point shooting and his ability to help with the interior defense is something that was evident in the summer league that I just don't think you want to poo-poo. You don't want to look at that player and say, well, he could help us, but we can wait a couple more years. Not necessarily with his length. You may want to bring him in. And I just say that a bunch of times. I know they're going to bring Cole in because of the shooting alone, Cole Swider. And so, it's only but so many players that we're going to keep. I do think mid-season moves are imminent, so that we can create space for guys or retool in such a way to make the roster make more sense. But I'm telling you, I think that the future for the Los Angeles Lakers bench and role-playing situation is as bright as anybody's in a situation like ours. Teams that have big stars, I like our role-playing situation going forward as these guys progress a whole lot. So that's where I'm at with that. And yeah, very curious to see what happens with Kendrick Nunn, um, because obviously we have an opportunity for him to play a role this year, and he's healthy. So with his contract being at $5 million for 1 year, it might be tempting to trade it. I think a lot of people, including myself, have been on the trading bandwagon just because we hate how last season went, giving him our mid-level exception and only seeing him in like 2 preseason games or something like that. But all in all, he's still a very talented player who gave us fits in the finals in the bubble, and I think if we have a role for him, he could certainly work his way into what we do as his conditioning gets to where it needs to be. So I'm not in love with the piece as it pertains to what we are, but I do think that he can make us believers if he gets back on track to where he was before he left Miami. So curious about Kendrick. Also, just the whole team, everybody. It's just one of those situations where I know training camp is coming up very soon. Today being the 4th, extensions are signed, so I think training camp probably starts up next week or something like that. Not very sure, but we're getting there. We're getting there, and I think once training camp begins, I do believe that my anticipation is that somebody is going to overreact to something, and because of it, we will see a move made. That's all I'm saying. Somebody's going to see something in those kids or in their roster during training camp, and that's going to prompt them to say, okay, it's okay to do this. Okay, it's okay to make a trade. I'm not as in love with this guy, or you know what, I really like this player, so we can get rid of that guy. That's going to happen in training camp, probably in an exaggerated way because people haven't been able to make moves. So as to where you may say in normal circumstances, he's looking a little funny, but we'll give it a little time. Now in a situation where the whole market can't move, you're like, yeah, that's the guy we're going to choose to try to initiate some process here. Like, yeah, he's okay, but we can afford to give him up for the sake of just getting the ball rolling. So I think there's probably going to be about 6 or 7 teams, maybe even more, that come to that conclusion about 1 or 2 of their pieces. Just because of the presence of needing to make moves and the fact that no one has been able to. And I anticipate no one will make any moves until then. So if everything I'm looking at is correct, that's going to be the time when people are going to be like, yeah, we can move now. We can move. Yep, he's not that good. Even if he's like literally just fine, they're still going to be like, yeah, he's not that good. We can move on. Trust me, that's going to happen. Because they're anticipating it. Everybody's waiting to be able to do that. That's the problem. Oh, here's something that I've been wanting to talk about that I just have forgotten to speak about. Sharif Cooper was waived from the Atlanta Hawks about a week ago, I think it was. Sharif Cooper, a young point guard, picked in the 2nd round with the Hawks. Very interesting prospect because of his passing ability and his flashy style of play. I think he's a showman. I've told you guys on numerous occasions that I think he's the type of player who's going to need a lot of development, but he has a lot of things about his game that you can easily see is going to make other players significantly better. And I do believe that he's going to be one of the best passers in basketball. I'm telling you guys this, and I told you guys this last year. He was one of the most intriguing players picked in the draft last year because his draft his draft stock didn't make sense. He fell to the 2nd round, and while he could fall in the 2nd round, as far as he fell into the 2nd round, didn't make any sense. He was better than what he was drafted to be, and then he was drafted into a situation where playing behind a bunch of guards, one being Trae Young, who never leaves the floor. And then they just brought in, of course, DeJounte Murray, so there's no way for him to get off the ground at all. He can't even begin to show you where he's at. And so I look at a player like that and say, look, I don't know where he's at. Have no way of knowing. But through the footage that I watched from him last year during the draft process, I'm a believer in his strengths. Now, his weaknesses are real, and he's going to have to develop. But his strengths are real too, and if you cultivate those, they will make your team so much better. Just by sheer nature. Because he's passing, he's looking to move the ball and get guys their ball in their spot. And most importantly, he's looking to have the fans be involved in that process. And that is why he stands out to me, because he's a showman. I always tell you guys about showmen. Those are the guys that are going to make it so that you want to watch the game. And that is why I think Sharif Cooper is a valuable, raw point guard prospect. So, with his weaknesses and the things that he has to work on, again, you're going to have to bring him in and find out. Because I simply had no clue at this point. But what I do know is it ain't been that long since I scouted him. It's only been 12 months. Nothing changes in 12 months, especially when there's been no basketball play. He ain't had no injuries. He ain't played. So, the upside is obviously exactly what it was 12 months ago. And so what I'd say is bring him in, do the homework on the kid, and find out what he can do. That's all. And I'm talking to the Lakers, but we have point guard prospects, maybe not the Lakers. Anybody, though. I'm talking about the Clippers, too, because they have him, John Wall in place. I think John Wall would be an excellent tutor for that kid. Be an excellent tutor for Sharif Cooper because John Wall's a passer. John Wall's a point guard who gets the ball to others, and he's a flashy guy in that regard. So I think that's the type of guy John Wall could take under his wing and help get the most out of, while not being worried about him taking his spot because Sharif's not ready yet. So it's like one of those situations where if I'm the Clippers, you need a secondary facilitator. That kid's not going to cost you anything at all. So bring him into your G League affiliate and see what he can do. Do the Clippers even have a G League affiliate? I'm not certain, but they should. And in the event they do, they should bring him to it. Bakersfield, right? Bakersfield Jam, that's them, right? I think so. Yeah. So I'm a big believer in the prospect of Sharif Cooper as it pertains to him, making it so that I enjoy watching the game and making it so that other guys, scorers, get their shots off in their spots. And so that's important, man. Continuity, my God. How many times have we seen second units in the playoffs that couldn't get a shot off because they didn't have a point guard down there, or couldn't get cohesive plays because everybody was an individual? He's the kind of guy puts an end to that. So that's a valuable piece. So yeah, I just want to put that out there. I think we have a lot to consider. You know, just in looking at the NBA landscape. Of course, Donovan Mitchell's still out there. You know, other teams are starting to get involved, as we talked about. Charlotte's name was mentioned yesterday, rumored to be interested. So I don't know if other teams start getting involved in that. But as long as the price tag's up, I don't think anybody should. As long as the Knicks are locked in on him, I think it could make it so that some teams could be deterred from looking at him. But Miami's there, Charlotte's there, and I would imagine Brooklyn should be interested in as well. Because if I got to get rid of KD, and if Kyrie's going to be bolting, I think the best possible move for myself if I want to win now is to try to make sure Donovan lands with me. So given the fact that he wants to go to the Knicks, maybe, I don't know how the energy is there, but if it were LA, I'm pretty sure the Clippers would be trying to snatch him from us. So I you know, the New York is different, but that's something I'll be thinking about if I'm the Nets. If I have to move on, Donovan Mitchell is the landing piece for myself. I'm getting, because it just makes the most sense to try to replace a star with a star if you don't want to rebuild. That's the only move. So that's what I'm doing. Bringing Donovan to New York. That's where he wants to be. Bring him to the Nets. So that's what I'm saying. At any rate, it's pretty much what I got, man. I'm very curious to see what happens with LeBron. That's really all it's about. Now, if he's going to sign the extension, and we know what we have, $23 million or so in cap space. If he doesn't sign the extension, we got a ton of cap space, but no certainty that he'll stay past this summer. So the risk of us possibly putting his name in trades leading up to the trade deadline does start being something people start wondering about. Do I think the Lakers execute a trade? No, I don't. But the presence of such is in place. Once a guy doesn't sign an extension and is now going to be a free agent or could walk, yeah, you'd probably be wise to trade him, honestly. So that's just how that goes in general. But of course, with LeBron James, as we've discussed a million times, I think the best way to play it with him is the opposite. You're free to come and you go, free to come and go as you please, because you're the king and we respect you. And so if you happen to not see us as the team to be on no more, thank you for being in for 4 years. Salute. You let him walk and you keep the cap space, because that's the honor that you pay a guy like that. That's etiquette in my opinion. But Etiquette doesn't pay the bills, and you got to solidify what's right for your team and make sure you recoup the money that's ultimately being lost in his absence. So however you play it is based on what matters to you. Either it's your ethics and being respectful of the legend, or it's your future and making sure you have your paper in hand and all the equity necessary. So it just depends on how you feel. I don't know, but as for myself, I kind of want to play it smooth because I think Brown will stay, as you guys already know. So it is what it is, man. That's what I got. My name is BDF44. I hope everyone has a fantastic day. I'm out.